Alright, what's going on everyone? In this video I'm going to show you how to upgrade the Garruk Savage Herald Planeswalker deck. As always, do keep in mind this is not intended to be a tier 1 competitive deck. If you want that, consider checking out the latest tournament results. What we'll be doing is upgrading this deck card by card, sticking to this deck's themes, and doing it on a budget as we will not exceed the deck's retail price with our upgrades. So the Garruk Savage Herald Planeswalker deck is a mono green Stompy deck with a focus on controlling creatures with power 4 or greater. You can see it with cards like Nessian Hornbeetle, Drowsing Pteranodon, and Garruk's Uprising. The Beetle will get a +1/+1 counter if we control a big creature every turn. The Dinosaur will lose Defender, so it's a 2 mana 3/3, and the enchantment will draw us a card when we play it, and also draw us more cards when we play big creatures. So yeah, it cares very much about controlling creatures with power 4 or greater. And then it has things to satisfy that requirement, like Almighty Brushwag, Wildwood Patrol, Garruk's Harbinger. The Patrol and the Harbinger each have 4 power for 3 mana, so that's pretty good. And the Brushwag conveniently has 4 mana if we can activate it once. So it'll allow us to attack with the Dinosaur and put a counter on the Beetle and whatnot. Now the problem with this deck is just, it's really inefficient. It has lots of creatures that are just kind of mediocre. Wildwood Patrol, for example, is just a really bad card, especially when compared to something like Yorvo, which also has 4 power for 3 mana, but it doesn't die so easily in combat, and it will continue to get bigger as we play more green creatures. So the idea of this video, we already have like the strategy, right? We're playing mono green Stompy. We're just going to try to optimize the creatures, get more powerful creatures for less mana, and just make this just bigger, faster, and more powerful. First, we're going to take out 3 Drowsing Pteranodons and replace them with 3 Bark Hydrolls. Now I know the Dino cares about 4 power creatures, but in this case, it's just an unnecessary restriction. Both of these are 2 mana 3/3s. The only difference is the Bark Hydroll can always attack no matter what. It's a 2 mana 3/3, doesn't have Defender. It's essentially a 3/3. It's a 2/2 that gets a +1/+1 counter. And it has the added benefit of we can pay 1, remove a counter, and give it hexproof, which means it's harder to remove because we can do that in response to a removal spell. So yeah, there's just no real reason to play the Pteranodon. It's kind of pointless. Bark Hydroll makes a lot more sense. It's an easy improvement. Next, we're going to take out 3 Pride Malkins for 3 Garruk's Harbinger. So the Pride Malkins don't really do much in this deck. They don't have 4 power. They just don't really belong. Technically, the reason this was in the deck is that +1/+1 counter. If we put that on the Dinosaur, it becomes a 4/4 and then it can attack. But beyond that, it's not really that necessary. The Harbingers, on the other hand, 4 power, turn 3, they can't be targeted with black removal spells, so that's pretty cool. And they also have the added benefit of whenever they hit the opponent, they can dig for creatures or Garruk, which is pretty great. So I actually think this is pretty decent in this deck. 3 mana, 4 power, dig for more creatures. Seems perfectly fine, especially when compared to Pride Malkin, which is just kind of whatever, even if it is totally adorable. Next, we're going to take out 4 Wildwood Patrols for 4 Lovestruck Beasts. The patrols are just kind of terrible. I mean, 3 mana 4/2 trample is just kind of meh. Not that exciting. It is nice to have 4 power on turn 3, but beyond that, not that exciting. With the beasts, well, we also have 4 power on turn 3. Technically, we have 5 power on turn 3. It can also produce a 1/1 token, and it's also pretty much one of the best green creatures in standard. Is that true? I mean, you know, with questing beasts, it's a really good green creature, okay? We'll say that. It's a really good green creature. We don't have to have that token for it to attack because we have other 1/1s in the deck. So we have lots of ways to make this active, and it's a 3 mana 5/5, and also it's 2 creatures on 1 card. It's pretty good. I like it a whole lot more than Wildwood Patrols. Lovestruck Beast played in many tier 1 decks. Very good card for very cheap, and it's just better. So happy to have these over the Wildwood Patrols. Next, we're going to take out 2 of the Predatory Worms for 2 Yorvo, Lord of Garruk. So the Predatory Worms are 4/4s, and sometimes they will be 6/6s, but Yorvo is also a 4/4, and it comes down to turn sooner because it only costs 3, and it gets bigger with each green creature we play. Every time we play a green creature, it gets a +1/+1 counter, so it can actually be larger than the worm. It comes down sooner than the worm. It's more aggressive, it's faster, and it can be more powerful. And if this goes unchecked for 3 or 4 turns, it can get absolutely massive. So Yorvo's pretty good. Perfectly happy to have that over the Predatory Worm. Predatory Worm's fine. Vigilance is really nice. I will say that the Vigilance is nice, and we are keeping 1 Predatory Worm in, but Yorvo is just great. It's a great card. 3 mana 4/4 is pretty good, and the fact that it just gets bigger and bigger throughout the game also really nice. And then we're going to take out 1 copy of Titanic Growth for our 3rd copy of Yorvo. Titanic Growth is fine, you know, it gives us 4 power during combat, but it's not that exciting, it's not that great. I mean, the problem is we have to play it pre-combat to get the bonus for like the Nessian Hornbeetle and stuff, at which point we kind of waste it, because the point of this is to be a surprise. You know, we either put it on an unblocked creature or we use it to block, and this deck is kind of forcing us to use this as clunkily as possible. So I just think removing 1 and putting Yorvo in makes a lot more sense, and we still have 2 of them in the deck, so you can still get those 4 damage blowouts, but I think having a 3rd copy of Yorvo, pretty important. And that's sort of all of our upgrades. It was pretty simple because we got to just take out entire playsets of cards, but there are some things that I want to talk about. There are still much more improvements we can make. They're just not 100% necessary. So for starters, you could take out the Nessian Beetles for Scavenging Ooze. So these are very similar. They're both 2 mana 2/2s, and they can both get counters. The difference is the Scavenging Ooze will be much more consistent because it can get counters faster and gain life in the process. So the issue is, let's say you're in top deck mode and you top deck a Hornbeetle. If you don't have anything else in play, it's just a 2 mana 2/2. But if you do that with Scavenging Ooze, it can come down, eat the graveyard, and become a massive threat right away. Plus it stops things like Uro, so it's reactionary, right? You have interaction, and the life gain is relevant against aggro. So Scavenging Ooze, it's just more universally useful. It's going to be better in like 99% of scenarios. It's just a really good card. It's not 100% necessary, though I do highly recommend it. It's just a great card. I think they're like $1 or $2 each though, so that's kind of why I'm on the fence about it. But if you have any on Arena, if you have any in your collection, if you open any in boosters, Scavenging Ooze, great in this slot for sure. And another upgrade you could make that is unfortunately entirely out of our budget, but it's without question it's better. The Dilophosaur can be replaced with Questing Beast. There's no comparison here. It's a silly comparison. The dinosaur at best is a 4 mana 4/4 with Death Touch. That's assuming we have a 4 power creature in play, right? So if we have a 4 power creature in play, 4 mana 4/4 Death Touch. Questing Beast is a 4 mana 4/4 with Death Touch all the time. It also has Vigilance, Haste, and all of these other abilities. It does all this stuff, right? It does tons and tons of stuff, and it's all upside. It's strictly better than the Dilophosaur. It always has Death Touch. It always is a 4/4. It's just better. There's no real reason to play the Dilophosaur over Questing Beast, except for one reason, and that's the price. Questing Beast, at the time of this recording, they're like $15 each. So it's very expensive. It's better, but you know, that's a very optional upgrade for sure. You can also add Castle Garen Briggs. 1 or 2 would be fine. They're like $3 to $4 each at the moment in USD, and I don't know. They're fine. They're just not perfect for this deck. It's a free ramp spell, right? We get to pay 4 and get 6. So it's a free ramp, and all of our lands are forest anyway, so it's fine. The problem is it's not entirely necessary in this deck because we don't have a lot of 6 mana creatures. We don't have any 6 mana creatures actually, and it can't cast Garruk. It has to be used for creatures, so it's like a free ramp spell that doesn't actually ramp us into anything. So it's one of those cards that if you happen to have them, they can go into the deck just fine because they don't really hurt. If you have one, it will literally never come into play tapped. It's like a no risk upgrade that technically doesn't give us much. So if you have them, add them. If you don't worry about it. And that's it. That's all of our upgrades. Although I will say that there is actually right now a tier 1 competitive mono green deck. So I want to leave links to that. If you want to see what a tier 1 deck, a legitimate competitive mono green deck looks like, the major difference is it has like Pelt Collectors, Gem Razors, and Questing Beast, right? Those are the big ones that this deck doesn't have, but it's very similar. So you can check that out if you want. But regardless of whether or not you go that route, this deck that we have here is just much more powerful and much more consistent than what we started with. You should definitely find yourself punishing your opponent for having smaller creatures or slow starts, because we're going to pummel people from time to time with this thing. This thing is perfectly capable of just smashing face, so it's definitely better than what we had in the box. So if you like this video and you want to see more like it, I have an entire playlist dedicated to upgrading Planeswalker decks, and you can find a link to that in the description below. You can also find my Amazon affiliate link, which you can use to support this channel if you wish, though that's not remotely necessary, and I do highly encourage you to buy Magic products at your local game store. But anyway, in the meantime, thanks for watching. I hope this video was helpful, and I will see you in the next one.